Mark Bellison is the odd one out among people who only speak the truth. Only he knows he can lie, so he tries his best to get the woman of his dreams. Mark is in a world where people are unaware of the concept of lying. So much honesty can be very harsh sometimes, but it's the only way they know. In this world, people admit to their employers that they don't feel like working. They also acknowledge ugly babies, and no one can help it. Since fat shaming and insulting is a part of people's regular routine, someone like Mark finds it a lot harder to survive. But he's about to go down in history for telling the world's first lie, even if he doesn't know this yet. He knocks and nervously waits for Anna to open the door before their date. With one look at him, she's already depressed about that night. She asks him to wait while she gets ready. She only agreed to this date because her mother is worried that she will end up alone. He feels awkward about being there early, and is sure the restaurant he picked out is not fancy enough. But he's 40 years old without any financial assets, so this is the best he can afford. When she comes down, she is more than clear that she doesn't find him attractive. When they arrive at the restaurant, the woman at the desk admits she is threatened by Anna. The waiter is grumpy since he hates his work. He also wonders if Mark is somehow related to Anna, since she is out of his league. When he's gone, Anna explains that she's an executive who hates her job. It still pays very well and she's happy about earning a lot of money. She also knows what she's earning is great for the number of hours she puts in. She also shares that she's usually happy, but there are days when she eats and cries in bed. She's also honest, like everyone else, about her insecurities. She immediately admits she wants to order something that won't make her fat. When Anna's mom calls, it gets awkward when she admits Mark is not attractive or successful. She thinks he's fat with a funny nose, but apologizes to him later. He thanks her for the date, since he knows she only did it as a favor to their friend Greg. She thinks she had a better time than she expected, but needs to sober up to know better. As he gets in bed that night, he watches an honest ad about Coke. Bob from the ad admits it's simply brown sugar water which can lead to diabetes. Mark holds the elevator for Frank and discusses how sad he is. He finally went on a date with his crush of many years, but he knows she is out of his league and will probably never call him back. Frank is depressed too and is about to give up on the miserable life he is living. On the way to his office, he notices a man on the street ranting about the struggles of life. A couple also keeps fighting, and a woman outside his office cries about not wanting to go inside. At Lecture Films, the tour guide explains how their films are made. Their writers are assigned specific centuries from history, which they turn into scripts to churn out sensational films. While giving the audience a sneak peek of their latest blockbuster, he gets excited to see Mark. He is infamous for being the least successful screenwriter, which is hilarious for everyone except him. His assistant, Shelley, also feels she is overqualified for her position. She knows Mark's boss Anthony is planning to fire him that day, if he gets the courage. She also stopped taking messages for him, since she is sure he is getting fired. Mark watches Anthony hesitating before entering his cabin. He still asks if Anthony can reconsider his termination. Anthony thinks all his scripts are depressing. He feels bad Mark has been assigned the 1300s, which is the most boring century. Even if he feels bad, he still fires Mark. After this talk, he gets a mail from Anna. She makes it very clear that she has no romantic interest in him. When he clears out his office, Shelley is very vocal about how she hated every minute of working with him. His colleague, Brad Kessler, also wants Mark to know he always hated him. He thinks he's a terrible writer and a loser. Mark goes to an old age home to find his mother, Martha. He crosses a lot of miserable women to find Martha struggling with the television. They discuss how horrible their lives are. He's now lonely and jobless. But Martha thinks it could still be worse, and is grateful they're not homeless. He feels bad everyone in their family is a loser, but it can't be helped. Mark's landlord wants rent soon, after learning he has been fired. He gives him a day to arrange $800, even if he only has $300 in his account. Mark goes to the bank to withdraw everything and close his account. He plans to shift his stuff since he's about to be homeless. The system is down, so the cashier Jill can't close his account. But she's still willing to help him with the withdrawal. When she asks for the amount he has in his account, something different happens in Mark's mind. He tells the first lie in the world and claims he has $800. She believes him, since no one lies, but the system also comes back up. She can see his statement with only $300. But since he quoted a different amount, she feels like their bank made a mistake. She gives him huge bills of $800 and apologizes for the inconvenience. With the money in his hand, Mark feels confused and excited all at once. He first clears his rent and goes back to his place. He can't believe what just happened to him. He thinks he has stumbled upon something that will change history as they know it. He goes to the bar to drink with his friend Greg and keeps thinking about what happened. The correct word for lying hasn't been invented yet, and he's unable to explain what he just did. He calls Jim the bartender closer to them to show a demo. He claims his name is Doug, but they instantly believe him. When he reminds them that his name is Mark, they believe that too. He starts telling random lies about him being an Eskimo or a pirate, and they don't doubt him for a second. When he asks what they would do if they could have anything in the world, their first thoughts are about women. Mark decides to test this and heads out in search of an attractive woman. She's not interested initially, but changes her mind when he declares the world will end if they don't have sex. He takes her to a cheap motel, where he tries to get to know her. But she's in a hurry to sleep with him, since she's worried the world will suffer if they don't. This doesn't seem right to Mark, since she's panicking too much. He pretends to call NASA and informs her that the world isn't ending. She feels relieved and hugs him, but Mark feels terrible and leaves. Back at the bar, Mark realizes if he could do anything, he should focus on getting a lot of money. He takes Greg for a trip, but he is too drunk to drive. When an officer stops them, Mark tries to handle the situation. Greg admits he's drunk immediately, and the officer asks him to breathe into the device. When Mark tries to reason with him, the officer is sure they can't afford his bribe. He charges a lot because of his expensive habit. The machine confirms Greg is very drunk, and the officer is more than happy to take him to jail. He forces him out of the car and starts beating him. When Mark announces that Greg is not drunk, despite the proof, the officer believes him. He apologizes for the adrenaline rush and helps Greg get back inside. Mark can't believe that worked too, and is sure they're going to be very rich. Greg doesn't understand what they're doing in a casino, when they don't have any money. But Mark has an idea and asks him to play along. When he asks for chips, the woman is sure he will lose all his money. Mark also knows the game is rigged, but is still confident. He asks for drinks on the roulette table, since he's eager to try out his luck. He places his bet on a number no one gets, but he manages to distract them and moves his chips to the correct number. When he announces he won the game, everyone believes him. He even claims he won a huge jackpot in one of the machines. The casino manager congratulates him and asks them to open their vault. Mark and Greg are happy to take away all the money. Mark's life is much better now, but Frank is still very depressed. Mark suggests he should value his life more. He assures Frank that he will meet someone and be very happy soon. Frank feels relieved he doesn't have to stay depressed anymore, and asks Mark to hang out with him. Knowing the impact his words have, Mark decides to help more people. He takes the homeless guy on the streets to the bank, and asks them to give him cash. He also whispers something to the miserable woman outside his office, who feels better. He even sorts the fight between the couple he passes by every day. Everyone at the old age home is also happier after he tells them something. One day he calls Anna, who reminds him of her email. He knows she's not interested, but begs for another date. He claims he has changed, and she will have to see it to believe it. She agrees to go with him for one more date, but is sure this will be their last one. He turns on the TV to find a screenplay by Brad, who is currently their best writer. This gives Mark an idea, and he starts writing something, which he also dips in coffee. He confidently walks back into the office to meet Anthony. Mark begins by explaining how depressed he was when he got fired. He claims he went for a walk to a desert after that. He found an unexplored chest and managed to get his hands on a never-seen-before manuscript from the 1300s. Anthony doesn't think that time period has anything else to offer, but Mark thinks this new information can be turned into the greatest movie the studio has ever made. He casually describes a day in the 14th century when a spaceship landed in Babylon. Anthony immediately calls everyone in. Mark starts entertaining an eager crowd with stories they believe are real. He discusses ninja armies and an Amazonian wedding on Mars. He also somehow brings in the survivors of the Black Plague. To make it somehow more believable, he claims the king performed a mind wipe on all humans after the wedding. He also claims the manuscript mentions that Mark would find it one day, after being humiliated by Anthony, Brad, and Shelley. He would then turn it into a major picture, which would become a huge success. Mark decides to call it the Black Plague, and Anthony already knows it will be the best screenplay ever written. Anna congratulates him for the script at their dinner date. She wants to know more about his family. He starts describing how unlucky his family has always been. He describes his father, Richard, as an alcoholic who lost his job and took to burglary. Richard was caught trying to enter a home one day. The owner of the house called the police, and he spent his last years in jail. But he is still blessed with an amazing mother. She's in a home for the elderly now, but he plans to take her out of there the next day. He wants to give her a mansion, so she can live the rest of her life in luxury. Mark thinks he is finally in Anna's league because of his financial status. He asks if this might help her reconsider a relationship with him. Anna likes spending time with him, and wants her children to have financial stability. She also thinks he will make a great father and a husband. But she is worried about his genetics, and doesn't want her kids to be fat with snub noses. He doesn't have time to react, since he gets a call about his mom not being well. When he goes to meet her, the doctor reads out her vitals and claims she only has one night to live. Martha understands this, but she's very scared of the end. She gets anxious that she will go into nothingness soon enough, and starts panicking. Mark can't see his mom suffering like this, so he asks her to listen to him carefully. He claims to know that after she passes, she will go to her favorite place. He insists she will find all the people she loves. This is a place where she can be young again, and dance around. He assures her there will be no pain in this world, and everyone gets a mansion for eternity. She feels relieved after hearing this, and is a lot calmer when she breathes her last. but the doctors and nurses who overheard him are very curious to know what he knows about the afterlife. He is still processing his mother's end and silently leaves. Anna sits with him in silence on the couch and holds his hand to comfort him. On his way back, he finds it strange that a huge crowd has gathered outside his house. When they spot him, they start asking questions about what happens after people lose their lives. He manages to brave the crowd and get inside. Anna has heard the news too, and wants to know why people think he knows all this. From the news, he also knows people are still very curious and won't back down till he answers some questions. Anna fights her way through the crowd to reach him next morning. She wants to know what he said to his mom, since it's clearly affecting a lot of people. He explains that he didn't like seeing her so scared, so he told her a few things. His description of the afterlife sounds like a dream to Anna, and she thinks he needs to share it with the world. This is the kind of information that can change mankind forever. She leaves him to compose his thoughts so he can tell the crowd what he knows. Greg brings him pizza and starts asking questions, but Anna takes him away so he doesn't disturb Mark. People in all parts of the world are eagerly waiting for Mark to make his statement. Greg and Anna wish him luck before he goes out to face the crowd. Mark starts by informing them about a man in the sky who controls everything. When people start asking questions about him, Mark expertly answers all of them. But he still asks them not to interrupt, since he has a huge list to cover. He also claims that after their demise, everyone will go to a great place where they will get the best mansion they can imagine. He claims all their loved ones will also be there. When he's questioned about this, he explains that people can also live with their loved ones. The spare mansions will then go back in the market. When he announces the place will have free ice cream for everyone, it starts a debate about horrible flavors. He asks them to be more positive and look at the bright side. But the twist is that people who do bad things will go to a terrible place. This starts an even bigger debate about what exactly constitutes a bad thing. He clarifies that doing a single bad thing isn't a problem, since people get 3 chances. As they're all curious about this particular point, Mark patiently engages them for 2 more hours to address every question. He finally concludes that bad things involve serious crimes like murder, which have been performed on purpose. He further claims that the man in the sky also controls who gets to go to the good or bad place. This makes the crowd realize he causes natural disasters and diseases too. They feel that's very unfair and get angry at him for hiding out. To calm them down, Mark explains that the man is also responsible for all the good things. He doesn't want people to worry because, according to him, the man in the sky makes up for the bad stuff in this life with an eternity of good things. People finally feel relieved to hear all this. When a woman asks how Mark knows this, he claims the man in the sky told him personally. After his speech, every news is about the man in the sky and the need for everyone to be good. The papers start associating every good and bad thing happening in the world with the man. Mark's face is plastered all over every magazine, and he becomes world famous. He hands over the finished script to Anthony as Brad watches with jealousy. Shooting for the Black Plague begins, and Mark is thrilled till he watches Brad flirting with Anna. He keeps getting richer and celebrates with Anna and Greg. His movie also breaks all records. In a park with Anna, Mark cooks up a story to impress her. He claims he once saved a baby from a burning building, and a bear was there too. Based on her questions, he keeps coming up with explanations for the details. He compares the bear to the man sleeping in front of them. While Anna instantly thinks he is a loser, Mark asks her to not judge people based on their appearance. He gives an example of a man coming towards them, who looks like a sweaty, bald guy to her. Mark points out that he could be on his way to an important meeting. Since he's so perceptive about things, she asks him to do a reading on her. He initially states the obvious and compliments her for being beautiful, but he also thinks she's the most wonderful person he has ever met. He reminds her about the time she was there for him as a friend and feels she's very sweet for it. When she looks at him, she still notices his appearance first. Beyond that, she feels he's smart, kind, and the sweetest man she knows. She also loves that he's so interesting and has a beautiful perception of the world. He's her best friend, and no one makes her happier than him. As they get closer and are about to kiss, Anna stops midway. She is still worried about his genetics and doesn't want to initiate anything, since she's scared of having fat babies. She knows she loves him, but she can't compromise with genetics. As he knows so much about the world, she even questions if someone's genetics change when they become rich and famous. Mark knows he could lie to change her mind, but he decides to stick to the truth this time. Some time has passed, and people continue to mock Mark on the radio. In his huge mansion, he makes someone write a script about animals to submit to the studio. Anna gives him a birthday card and explains she won't be able to watch a movie with him that night. She's going on a date with Brad and knows how much Mark hates him. She likes him, but Mark is against the idea of her getting close to Brad. He asks her to at least not sleep with him. She's afraid that if she doesn't, he'll find a better match and leave her. Mark tries his best to make excuses about why she shouldn't. He somehow convinces her that she shouldn't have sex with anyone before marriage. When he opens her card, he finds a coupon from her for birthday sex. He tries to change his statement, but he has already convinced her she cannot have sex before marriage. She is determined to follow his instructions, and he can't help it. She's glad to see how great Brad looks when he comes to pick her up. He makes sure to rub it into Mark before their date, When Anna explains the concept of the coupon to him, he offers to take it from Mark. He even suggests they should get married soon. Brad has been awarded another promotion at work. In conversation, he wants to make sure Anna knows he's doing better than Mark. She stands up for how smart Mark is, but his hatred is obvious. He makes sure to point out that he's better looking and has a better personality than Mark. He orders a salad for Anna without consulting her, since he doesn't want her to gain weight. She nervously still asks for some chicken, since she's hungry, but Brad refuses to let her have it. He directly insults her by insisting she will get old and wrinkly one day, and doesn't want to risk her getting fat too. When she gets a call from her mom, he takes the phone. He initially compliments Anna, but gets irritated by her mom's annoying voice. Anna waits to toast with him when the wine comes, but he ignores her. He claims she's a near-perfect match for him, in all ways that matter. He also admits he wants her because Mark is in love with her. She tries to make him understand that Mark is a great friend. But Brad doesn't see him as anything less than a loser, and feels like he's living the life he wanted to have. Even if he's jealous, he still wants to have the one thing Mark doesn't, which is Anna's love. When Mark walks down the street this time, everyone seems to be impatient about the afterlife. He wonders if at least Greg and Frank's life is better after the revelation. Frank has given up on finding true love, since he feels he will get eternal happiness anyway. He's trying to drink as much beer as possible, so he meets his end soon and gets a mansion in the afterlife. When Anna is watching Mark on the TV, her mom switches it off. She asks her not to be his friend, and shuts down any thoughts Anna has about being more than friends with Mark. She reminds her of the importance of genetics, and thinks Mark is a loser. She also ignores that Mark makes Anna feel special and happy. She instantly dials Brad's number, and asks Anna to make it work with him. Mark sits with his mom's grave, and feels bad that he's the only one who knows she is not in a happy place. He knows people still don't want to listen to their heart, which is why he thinks he will always be a loser and alone. He drags himself out of his bed with a lot of trouble to find Anna at his doorstep. She has come to check on him after a long time, since he's ignoring her calls. She's getting married to Brad, and wants him to be there at the wedding. He asks her not to marry him, but the wedding is the next day. Both of them know she is much happier with him, but Anna's priorities are clear. She has limited time to find her genetic match and have the babies she wants. She thinks she will be old and ugly soon, but Mark promises she will always be beautiful to him. She watches a kid enjoying ice cream in a park. Some other kids come to him and throw it on his clothes. Anna intervenes and assures the child that he's much more than his appearance. Mark is feeling his worst, especially when he gets up and looks at himself in the mirror. But Greg gives him a razor since he thinks he hasn't lost yet. Anna walks down the aisle and notices Mark there. The priest begins the ceremony by commenting on how they're a perfect genetic match. When he asks if they agree to the wedding, Anna looks back at Mark before she finally says yes. When the priest asks if anyone protests to the wedding, Mark stands up. He knows Anna will be much happier with him, and calls Brad just a sperm donor. He confesses his love for her, and asks as her best friend to not marry Brad. But Anna thinks this is the way of the world, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. He still thinks genetics don't matter, since he will love their kids a lot more than Brad. He wants to know what she truly feels, and asks if this is her choice. But everyone, including the priest, wants to know from Mark what the man in the sky thinks is best for Anna. Mark refuses to tell them, since he feels this should only be Anna's decision. When he walks off, she follows him outside to learn what the man in the sky wants. Mark finally admits there's no such man. He only made up the story because he didn't want to see the pain in his mom's eyes. She wonders why he didn't lie to her before, to convince her they're a perfect match. Mark still stands by his belief that he wants this to be Anna's decision, and not influenced by other factors. After all the commotion, Anna finally admits she wants fat kids with snub noses like him. After a few years, Mark is happy he finally got the girl. He's still the only person who can lie in this world, except his son. The fact that he lies to Anna expertly about how good her food tastes makes Mark think he might have the special ability too.